Let's see. Oh, I think we're good. Are we live? All right. Let's do this thing.
Oh. Now it says there's an error loading my app.
I think we're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
My screen's telling me that it's not working.
That's weird.
But it also says live.
Yeah, it says live for me too. On our little on my other screen, you're good to go.
Okay.
Cool.
Are you muted on what other device you have?
Yeah, mine's being weird though. I literally thought we just fixed it, but let me click something here real quick.
Okay. So if we are live, I'm sorry everybody for the delay, having some technical difficulties, as you've probably guessed. If it involves me and technology, there will be issues. Hey, thanks, Red. You're always showing support, and I appreciate that.
Cool. You know, we'll try it again next week. It's being weird on my end too. It's not letting me pull up my screen share.
Should we try to just get back on, or what do you think?
It's all good, man. The logo is going to be fun once it works, but I think let's just get this thing rolling.
All right, sounds good, man. So yeah, I'd rather be motivated. Episode 9 now, is that right?
Yeah.
All right, ironing it out. We'll get there. Peeking back and forth now. I do see you're drawing on my phone, but dude, I don't know.
I see you on my other screen.
I think we might be good to go for whatever reason. It's probably my computer that just bunked something up, but we'll just go with it.
All right. Let's jump in and do this thing then.
All right. Who are you, sir?
I am Mr. David Fleming. You can find me on Instagram at Art of Mr. Fleming, Facebook at Mr. David Fleming, and you can those two tags all around the world. You can find me everywhere.
Around the world. So I am Mr. Scott O Green. You can find me on Instagram at Mr. Green Draws. That's mr.greendraws. And here on YouTube and Facebook under I'd Rather Be Drawing. Also check out our website that David and I do called I'dRatherBeDrawing.com. And just to squeeze this here at the top real quick. Dun, 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 dun. Today is 100 days of making comics. Because every day is 100 comics. And today's day 55, I believe.
55.
Oh, there you go. We'll talk more about that stuff later, but got that out of the way.
How does that feel?
Good. It's cool to be over the hump, but it's bittersweet because I wish I was a lot further. But further along in like how far the comics I want to be in for this many days. But a little bit at a time, and it's been a rough patch, so it's been cool to see that still plugging away. So, how's your week gone?
Actually, I'm surprised I don't sound as much. I did like just an hour ago. I sounded way worse. But I just like I'm gonna get real gross here for a second. But do you know what like a neti pot is?
Yeah.
I cannot recommend it more. If you have never tried one of those things before, it is amazing when you're just congestion and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I caught this last Sunday and I still am fighting it. I might cough.
And this was like your first week back at school too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. First week of classes and all that kind of stuff, and I had to act really hard to look like I didn't hate my life.
I swear it's not because of all of you, except for you. Now sit down. It doesn't sound like a great way to start a new school week.
Yeah, I was joking. That's like you're trying to get a whole bunch of teenagers on your side. One of the best ways is to look like you actually kind of enjoy what you do, because you'd be surprised how much it surprises a student when you're like, actually, like you're like, yeah, no, I love this, man. I'm getting paid to do this. This is a blast. This is my life.
That surprises them. They're like, I thought we all didn't want to be here.
Yeah, no, it's super real. I guess like I mean this is my 5th year altogether of doing teaching, 4th year here in the school I'm at, and I mean you'd be surprised how many teachers do act like they kind of hate what they're doing, even if they say they don't.
Yeah, it does. I mean, even for like the best of teachers like yourself, I imagine there's some days where, yeah, dude, it's like a job and you have to be there and that's why you're there. But still probably better ways to handle that than some. So as far as art making, with being sick and having first week back at school, were you able to get anything done that you've been wanting to work on? Or
here's where I take the time to admit one more thing about me, which is like you know what a man cold is? You ever heard that term before?
I have.
That is the definition of me.
I gotcha.
I will 100% admit it. My wife hates me for it. I always joke that I'm 110% like every other day of the year. You know, I'm like full energy. I'm ready to go. So like when I get a cold, it destroys me.
You're like, no, I'm making up for all those other days.
Yeah. And so I have not really been getting it done. Like I've been pushing myself to get something done, but I'd say I feel like I'm at like half creating capacity here.
You know, it is important to take care of your health and everything. And something I have seen through some of these different art challenges and the 100s and the check-in videos and stuff is it is awesome to plow forward and just keep going no matter what. Like, that's an awesome mentality. But sometimes I do see it making people sick, you know, me losing sleep more and more and more. You know, that's not just with this issue, but I don't know. It makes a difference. And you got to take care of yourself. If you want to make comics, you got to be healthy.
Yeah, I don't even know where I stand on that one because I give props to the people who push through. But like in my mind, it's one of those things where it's like I'm doing this because I love this thing, and I'm not going to do anything that's going to turn this thing I do into something that's not a joy for me. So I bow out as soon as it's like I don't bow out as like I'm just giving up easy, but I bow out as like I'm not going to make this thing into some kind of chore, you know.
Well, yeah, and I think it's, you know, for each person to decide ultimately, regardless of how other people want to perceive it. If they're like, you know, for a cold, I keep going. It's like, I don't know. Everyone knows like when it's time to, whether you're making a cop-out excuse or whether it's a reason. You know, there is a difference between reasons and excuses, you know. And I think, you know, health is a good reason to, you know, slow down a second, take a break. Take care of the priorities, which if you're sick, you're not going to be making the stuff you want to make, or like you said, it's going to become a chore, and then it loses all fun.
Yeah, that's definitely real. So, yeah, back to like my process or progress, right? That's where we were at, right? Like, what is my progress as far as that? So, I just did finish my panel. I'm pretty sure that happened early last week, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I finished my first panel of the interior of the book, which was like really satisfying to just be like, cool. Well, like I pencil it at least, you know, it's like a satisfying feeling to be like, that's a page that's going to go in my book. Like I made a cover, I made a page, like I've officially started this book. So that was really cool.
That's awesome. I think I want to take a page out of your book, but I like the idea now that I'm kind of rolling on October a little bit. I like the idea of sort of starting with a cover, whether it becomes something different or not. I kind of know the characters and everything that's going on, and I feel like it could give me an idea of what it's going to look like, which I think could be beneficial for me. Plus, I need to keep myself like drawing more. But anyway, I like how you did that. How you kind of made the cover, and then, you know, you've had the idea for the story, but that kind of seems to make it like a real thing, and you're sort of begun the comic at that point. So props to you, man.
It's also how I think. I'm like I have an illustrator mind more than I do like a lot of people are really good at the concept thing of like doing character turns and like drawing this thing at a bunch of different angles, and like I always imagine a character for the first time like at a specific angle, like in a specific pose, communicating a specific thing. I've talked to a lot of my like fans and stuff about this. I think if Ace is still watching, like I've talked to him about this a lot, but it's like that's like how my process is for getting like an idea out of my head. It's always like a specific visual of the then and the now of exactly like that character. So it's almost like that visual of Apollo is how the whole book even spawned in the first place, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So doing that like that was really satisfying. Also, redrawing that was really satisfying. On my, I think it's still my Facebook profile. which I'm thinking I should change that now. But that image I drew at a year, probably even almost 2 years ago, of Apollo before I really completely fleshed out like all the details of his character, like in pretty much the same pose.
But it looks good, man. It retains like the original stuff that I think made you fall in love with it, but
yeah,
it does show a crispness in design and execution that I think was really nice.
thanks. Yeah, that's progress for me. How about you, man?
Yeah, so I got to think here. Mr. Green's Monster Zine. So all of the, let's see here. Tonight I'm going to have finished typing out the last 2 stories. I had a rewrite for Eyeball Kid, and then for the kind of intro page where it shows a picture of like a regular dude shaking hands with a monster just off page. For the story, and since people don't really know me and what I look like for that much, it's effectively that guy is Mr. Green. And so I wrote like a little story intro for the book and for that page, and then the rewrite for Eyeball Kid. And so now I just have to type that out in Photoshop and the format that all the other pages are in. And once I finish those 2, which they're all ready to go, it's just typing them, then that is the editing as far as all the words and that part of the book, like the lettering effectively, like which words are going to be highlighted and the sizing and all that stuff. So that part will be done, which I'm very excited about because I really just want to be past this, send it to the printer so I can start focusing on October. But I don't want to, jump the gun too much. I still want it to look good.
Right.
And then I posted a thing. Oh, sorry.
I was just wondering, you made the comment about like the font and stuff. Have you thought about like hand lettering a font or anything, or are you just gonna kind of play with stuff until you find something that works?
Yeah, so the font that it's in is actually a hand-lettered one that I did through calligrapher.com, and that's spelled just like calligrapher, only in the last, it's not P-H-E-R, it's just P-H-R at the end, so calligrapher.com, where they like let you make a free one. And so I did that, and I did it all caps, and then it let you do like the lowercase as well, but I just did all caps again, and so I'd be able to like use variances in it.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more hand looking because it is just kind of my hand kind of. It's actually the same font that I ended up using on Die in Your Sleep for Isabel Crane. I'm using that one.
Does it work like it gives you a template that you like print and draw on, or how does that work?
Yes, I think much like the one that you gave. Yeah, I gave a template that you would print out, and then you directly write on top of it or do whatever on top of it. And then it was really easy. It was just a matter of like I took a picture with my phone. It had like, see here. It had like a blank page that had all these quadrants, squares out, and you'd write in each one, like when you're a little kid learning how to do it. And then it had like these 4 dots, and it's like just take a photo if you don't want to scan it. Just make sure to get those 4 dots in. So I didn't scan. I just did that, and like that was good enough, and it worked out really well. And so I kind of type it loose at the same time.
Have you typed with it already?
Yeah, so it translates over, like it doesn't go in all programs, but it does go in Photoshop, which is cool. So like in Photoshop, there's, I have a font that's, my name on it. So at least for now, that's what I'm using. For the next product, for October, I think I want to figure out something else for like a better, more professional look, or at least more comic look, maybe. But maybe even pay a letterer. I got some advice on that from a guy at the last Comic-Con I went to, who said like people in the biz who are like really good at lettering are oftentimes like their per page rate is a lot less expensive, obviously, or not obviously, than like the artists and stuff. So you can actually get quite good letterers to do your comic for apparently like not a crazy sum of money. And it's such a final thing that like I do like the idea of doing it all by hand myself and everything, but if that's something that somebody else could do that I could invest in that really like help the finished look of the book as like a nice polished piece, I don't know, might be something to look into. So
yeah, for sure, especially when like that kind of thing is like like I actually have a perfect example of that. I'm not going to name any names on it, but I kickstarted a book a long time ago that I still haven't actually technically gotten, but a friend of mine already got his, and we were like reading through it, and it was like the lettering was horrible, like terrible spacing. Like anytime he typed a certain letter, it like literally ran into the side of the text boxes and stuff like that.
Oh.
It was just like it was like no breathing room, and like sometimes if they were like a circle one, they worked really well, but if they had to shape it in any kind, it was like it didn't fit in the box well at all. And man, wait, like talk about like pulling you out of some beautiful art.
Yeah, I feel like you could have the best art in the world, and then if you slap some bad lettering on it, like you just said, it totally pulls you out of it.
Yeah.
And like, especially if you're doing a comic, like believe me, if you're doing like a full comic by hand, doing every part of it yourself, it is so easy to get to that last part and just be like, oh, I just want it done. Just plug it into, Comic Life and just use that regular Comic Sans or whatever, and just plug it in, stretch the balloons, and go. But even on like the very first comic I did, that was something that I learned that it didn't totally work for me doing totally hand done art, scanning it in, and then doing completely digital letters and word balloons. It definitely looked like there was a separation there that didn't work out.
I think, yeah. I found, so I mean, just finding fonts in general, a lot of times you can find some fonts where you can pay like a really cheap, like $3 just like licensing fee because someone made it, but like they're like, well, I made this to give me some kind of credit for it, you know. And the website, I haven't gotten really a chance to look through it, but I remember being told it a long time ago, so I have it in my bookmarks. Hold on, it's called Blambot, I think is what that, and it's like comic lettering specifically.
Blambot, how do you spell that?
Like BL, like literally, like the cheesy, like blam, pow, like the BLAMBOT.
Gotcha.
I haven't actually looked through it. I just had this in my bookmarks from a long time ago when someone told me about it.
Sorry, I am losing a little bit of focus. I'm trying to maintain on the chat. I apologize. I get so used to saying like mixing up people's real names with like their like call signs. Comic Den. What's his name?
Ace.
Ace. Sorry, man. Sorry, Ace. He said something very. I just know him as Comic Den because that's what I always see. But he says he remembers telling us earlier on the trail end of the IG stream that we've been motivating him to pursue a few of his own projects and wanted to say thanks. And I just think that's super cool, man, because people have motivated us, and that probably actually kind of goes into a little bit of what our topic of discussion is tonight on motivation and everything. But glad we could help with you, man, and stick at it, and definitely share with us your progress on those projects, no matter what they are. It's always fun to see. Let's see here. And he says, how long are your stories? Is it a comic series or graphic novel? Do you want to go ahead and answer that one first, David?
Mine is both, and that's why it's so much fun. So I like there's this thing of like they say before you start making comics, don't make a big epic one. And I've made a few comics here and there, short stories. I published one, and it was like a fun practice round. And I'm ready to jump in and make a fun epic, but I also really enjoyed the short story thing. So I have formatted this sort of world that I've been just doodling in forever, so that they are short stories and they all live and breathe all on their own. Like you could pick one up and not know anything about the others, and you'd probably still really enjoy them. But then they will all lead into a nice bigger story to read later that will be a graphic novel.
That's a super cool idea, man. I love it. For me, with October, which is kind of the next comic I'm working on, and will probably be my most comic since the first one I did, looking like one and everything and feeling like one. And it's turning into something a little bit longer than what I'd originally intended. I really just kind of wanted a standalone thing that could exist on its own, probably just like a 24-page comic. But and trying to really figure out exactly how long of a story I wanted to tell and what that story looked like, I wasn't coming up with the story. So I kind of resorted to like not thinking about that and just trying to come up with what I thought would be an interesting story. And it's turning into something a little bit longer. I think it's something that could be told ultimately in like a trade paperback, or at least in like, one or two sort of plus size issues or mega size issues or whatnot. I don't want it to be a huge long thing to go on forever, but I want to tell the story I want to tell, and a lot of stories that I really like are sort of, journey tales, adventures, from point A to point B, accomplish the mission, strange folks along the way. And one thing I learned through my first comic and through other comics that I really like is learning the courage and the storytelling to like take time and breathe in a story and not rush it too much. Like, you don't want things to be boring, obviously, but when it's just back to back to back, I don't know. I watched Spirited Away again here recently, and that whole train scene that happens like midway through the film where it's just like a long silence for a while, that it's one of the best parts of the film and doesn't necessarily have to be there. If you want to create cool mood with characters, learning the right space there is good. Sorry, going on a little bit long there, but so it's turning into a little bit of a longer one. Hopefully it'll just be like at length, maybe like a 3 comic thing. That seems a little bit less scary to me than like a full graphic novel.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into something like that quite yet. I want to keep it at shorter stuff, but that's me there. But yeah, as far as progress, just kind of plugging away at that stuff. Still working on sketchbook things on what I want crows to look like and what I want certain characters to look like. But other than that, just kind of plugging away at those. But does bring us, unless there's anything else you want to talk about with the previous week stuff, if you want to get into a little bit of our topic idea for this evening.
No, yeah, I'm super down with that. I will segue in. Ace came right back at us with a nice little comment too that I liked, and then we'll jump in. But he was saying, like, if you were kind of weary of the idea of starting a giant epic thing, to storyboard it as smaller, like, think of it as like story arcs. He says, do it as 6-issue story arcs and then make it like a trade, and then like that's your graphic novel kind of thing,
Yeah, I love that idea of breaking up into smaller bits to tell it. And plus, I think that's a great way to do it, to make sure, like, I'm a big music fan, and you hear people talk about the beats in storytelling, and the obvious rhythm to that, and figuring out, okay, this is the different places I'm going to be. I'm going to split that up into 5 pages for each. Yeah, I love that. It does help to kind of break it up into smaller segments, and I think that helps you maintain the rhythm of the story that way.
Cool. All right, let's talk now. Let's segue into this. So the topic for tonight was, we kind of talk about this sometimes, and we thought it'd be really cool to do a full episode about it. But excuse me, Scott and I are like a team. We are a comic collective, as we like to call ourselves, and we could just be, 2 completely separate accounts, 2 dudes like working alone and then coming together. But we decided when we first started all this that we were like wanted to actually have like a legit partnership in this. And it's, I don't know, speaking for myself, it's a really cool thing, because at first it was like, this is cool, like if you do something cool and I do something cool, it draws other 2 people. And it was like, it definitely feels like at first maybe it was more of just like, this is a cool way to get more traffic. But like the real heart and soul behind it is this idea that like, I don't know, I had this really good thing to say and it kind of slipped out of my brain, but it's like, if you read our story, we used to work together, like literally work together, and it was that dead end, feels like maybe you're not doing what you love kind of thing, and this was just like our way of like what we can follow our passion together, and we like feed off of each other is a good way of putting it, right, Scott?
Yeah, we used to get in trouble a lot. Well, a talking to, because we'd be passing each other when we stopped, like, hey, you working on any art? Yeah, I'm working on this. What are you working on? And we sit and try to talk really quick, but essentially we just sort of stop in the aisles and they'd be like, stop talking, get back, you got to keep moving. Yeah. So it just eventually got shortened to us passing each other, shaking our heads. I'd rather be drawing.
Yeah, and it was like, I don't know, like what it's turned into is just this really cool thing that like, we always say this always happens an accident, but it's like, every time that I have a lull, Scott's always in a high. And then every time like I'm in a high, Scott seems to be in the lull. And it's like in a good way. Like we always have like the other person to be like, all right, this is what's going down right now with IRBD Draw. Like I got this really cool idea that we do this, and let's start this every Sunday night thing. And it's like this thing where like none of these things would ever really have happened as quickly or as smoothly as they had without one of us and then the other. Like every other good idea comes from one of us, and then the fact like making it actually happen is like we have an actual accountability partner. That's a good way of putting it.
Absolutely. I think it's been something that like it is a little bit weird to explain to people because they're like, so are you in business together? And it's like, well, at this point, not really. He like does his thing, I do my thing, but like for me, it always has been like a double-edged sword in a good way. And it seems like if you say like the business aspect of it, that's like a negative connotation. But it's something that you and I have always talked about, and like you just touched on. When we both first started off, we're just two regular dudes, and now we're super dudes. No, we're just two regular guys, and especially me just kind of starting from scratch out there in social media, it was an easy way to, if someone, like you said, is coming to look at my stuff, they'll also get eyes on your stuff. If they come to see your stuff, it'll also get eyes on my stuff. So I think that was always in our heads of knowing that it could be a good idea sort of business-wise for us to combine efforts to make that foundation of fan base or eyes on your projects or your growth as an artist, effectively double that or whatnot, get at least twice as much looking at you. I think we're always conscious of that, and it just makes good sense. But the friendship side of it, it's the accountability. At first, it's a thing where, like, I think a lot of people, when they first go to Comic-Cons, they table with friends and stuff because they're kind of scared and freaked out. Like, I don't know if I have enough to fill the table and this and that. And there was some of that with us and everything. And I think even a little bit in the beginning inception of I'd Rather Be Drawing, like, maybe if we do it together, it's less scary. We'll both walk out on stage together. That's a lot less scary than going out there and doing a monologue. Once we realized how much fun Comic-Cons were and putting ourselves out there, I don't think that part of it was near as important to us. Like, I don't think that was important at all. I think, like, even the next couple of times we split tables, I don't think maybe either of us necessarily felt like we still had to, but we realized that there was still like a kind of dynamic duo thing to it where, like you said, when one is down, the other picks it up. And even just at a Comic-Con, when one person's tired, the other person talks to the customers or whatever. So it has been, a swing that way. So I think some of it did start off as like, I'm kind of freaked out. Why don't you come do this with me? And but that quickly faded into just it's fun having somebody else around. It pushes you. You've heard me talk about a lot how I'm not a very tech-oriented guy. Well, essentially, I'm part of a website. David's done, like, he built the website. With him doing that, I don't want to feel like dead weight. That makes me want to work even harder. So when he's spent from making the whole website, that makes me want to start generating content for the website. So I help get that going, write articles and write newsletters and different stuff that I can, I write the newsletter and he sends it out, so we can really kind of use our talents to help each other. So it's not as daunting for me to tackle all the tech stuff on my own and have to learn all that, because honestly, like, I wouldn't be this far. I wouldn't have a website. I wouldn't be doing all of this stuff right now without David. And he might be too exhausted from having to build all the website stuff and build all the Etsy stuff to really, like, be generating content 24/7. So he can kind of get the tech thing set up, and then I can start making a bunch of YouTube videos, and then we can kind of mesh together and get on the same wavelength and just kind of keep it rolling. So for us, I think it's been a lot about building a great big foundation that as we learn and grow, we can kind of keep building on. And when there's another person there to think about ideas and bounce things off of, it helps.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there too. It's almost like sales pitching this, but it's like, I mean, that's kind of what's going down. You're just one person, and man, for anybody who does this kind of stuff and is watching this, it, like how exhausting it can be. Like, you're not just drawing, but you're also, excuse me, but you're also like, then you have to post it, and then you have to make a video. Like, it's like you said, it's like there's all this extra behind the scenes stuff, and then like having someone to like be like, this thing isn't working, and you're like, oh cool, no, I know how that works. Here, just send me those files. I got this. It's like we are equally invested in each other's individual projects as much as we are in the big project. Like, I'd rather be drawing as a thing, but so are our individual and our personal comics and all this kind of stuff. And like Scott can send me at any time like a page he needs looked at or whatever. Like literally, I remember not long ago you were like, "Hey, is there an easier way to fix this problem?" And I just like jumped on my computer and like filmed myself like on my photoshopping, like this is how I would do it, and just sent it over to you. And it's like there's definitely plenty of people who have their communities of their artists and stuff, but like building an actual literal connection of like partnership like we have is just like, I don't know, I feel like it's exponentially helped us grow as quickly as we have, if that makes sense too, because I really do feel like our journey is not it's a short one, but I feel like we've already like built a thing that's like feels solid.
Yeah, it's been a huge benefit for me for sure. And that's why I say, like, it's important for me to work hard to make sure that like it's a beneficial thing for you too, you know. Yeah. No one wants to, you know, be a drag or the little tag along little brother, you know. Hey, will you show me this? Will you show me that? But yeah, even just from, you know, the aspect of healthy competition, which I hear a lot of artists talk about. You know, when we used to live in the same city, and which we don't now, that's why we're doing, you know, it this way. It was like throughout the week, so, you know, you'd be talking about, oh man, I'm working on this commission for so-and-so and I'm killing it, it's going great. And we're like into the week and man, I don't really have anything to show. Man, I want to show up that night with something cool. I don't want to be left in the dust. And if I show up with a little drawing and you've got something that's awesome, it's not like a jealous thing, like I wish you didn't make anything awesome. Yeah. It just goes, I really want to work harder to make something as cool to bring into the table so that I can see that reaction in your eyes that goes, whoa, that's pretty cool. Like when I look at yours that same way, you know. I think it's a really good competition. And I think we're seeing a lot of people like through the 100s as they complete their 100-day challenges, still looking for that accountability, that somebody who's going to care if you show up or not. And, you know, that's what we've kind of embedded from the beginning. We've gotten stuff from, like I mentioned a lot, but like Corey Kerr and Joshua Kemble in the 48-hour art check. And there's a lot of other guys, Mike Emirates and Gaz and Jan and Ox and Chris McQuinlan and Marshall Lee. So I'm trying to name all of them, but like there are a lot of really cool shows to see too. But that's what people are doing, is getting that like accountability with each other. And our shows like picked up stuff from those other shows like the 48-hour art check and everything. But this is something that like we've had going for a while because we kind of saw the importance of like the weekly meetup and trying to get this going on a more regular basis. Now it's finally going. It helps, but that accountability, like just accountability online is great. You know, you do Inktober and it's awesome. And that's the idea of posting, is accountability. But essentially, there's not a lot of people who are going to go, hey, you didn't post today, what's going on? They don't really care as far as that goes. If I start slipping in the middle of a 100 days, the community, as well as like, especially you, David, you're going to go, hey man, what's up? Is something weird going on? Are you sick? Is, you know, it's, as like you said, somebody real right there who actually cares, you know. So setting up a partnership, it's, you know, why a lot of artists don't just work from home. They'll like pay to go rent space at a studio to be around other artists, you know. It just feeds into good things.
Yeah, that's like a really good point. It's like, it's that built-in thing that like, and it's like other artists definitely have it and they go and they see it. But it's like, since we already had it, we were like, why not like push it a step further and like build an actual legitimate partnership through this thing. And who knows what the future for that holds, but like, I don't know, it's just like a really cool thing to be able to be like, yeah, I have like a partner. He does this stuff too. We check in with each other, we keep each other accountable.
It's super awesome. And we've even talked about some ideas for the future on, you know, like a t-shirt. We want to make an I'd Rather Be Drawing t-shirt. And it is cool because we're just at a good place with each other where there would never be anything of David's that I would try to take ownership of. And, you know, there wouldn't be anything of mine that he would want, you know, and we've already talked about things like, and that's the thing too, is like anything like that, we just kind of lay it straight out on the table. Like, yeah, hey, so there's going to be fees for this. How do you want to take care of it over the next however many years? You know, there's no surprises like, you know, so much of like partnerships and just relationships with people is just people not communicating, just assuming things. And that's one thing that we've just been able to have is a straightforward line of communication. You know, even if it's something where like one of us foresees that this could be like a weird thing because two artists have ego, so we just go, hey, I foresee this as being a weird thing. What do you think about this? You know, and
Right.
we haven't had issues like that way. We do our own thing, but we still like are a solid, you know, unit together. And I don't know, it just has worked out for us, you know. So having somebody to have that with, you know, a trust is important. I'd recommend.
Yeah. The other side of it too is like we recognize how new we are at this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about that. I looked back. I actually just before I jumped on, I went and read our About Me thing because it's been a minute since I've really looked through it, and I was like, man, yeah, this is all still super real. But one of the things one of it was that we invite the world to watch as we grow, and it was like our thing is, you know, like learn by doing. I remember when I first started getting back into the comics thing and the drawing stuff, and like everyone that I watched seemed to have already made it, I guess is a good way to put it. And we were like, we know we haven't made it yet, and it's going to be a long time before we do anything with this.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's like the perspective of the guy who just got a chance to do it for the first time, and we get to share like our experience from that. And I think that's like a really cool thing that we have going with this too.
Mm-hmm. Plus, have you ever read a book by yourself and no one else is reading the book, and as you read chapter by chapter, you just want to freaking talk about it with somebody, and then you end up talking to somebody at work about it and explain like the whole book, and they're like, dude, I do not care. Well, it's kind of that too. There's somebody who's genuinely interested because we're both making stuff. So if I find a place where I just printed stickers and he's like, ooh, where'd you get that? How much? How'd it go? How well is it? Ooh, by the way, did you get the sticker with that comic?
Exactly. And like, I don't, you know, it's like, we're still small and I don't really know where the growth might lead, but like, it would be cool. Like that kind of community is like totally what we like though. Like, I mean, if a dude messaged one of us through the Instagram too and said the same thing, you know, like, hey, I have this story or this idea. We like that kind of thing. Like that's what I'm all about too, is like the collective is just me and you in terms of like the business side of it or whatever you want to call that. But like, I don't know, it'd be cool if in the future we could find a way to make that grow to like other creators too.
You know, eventually I think it'd be kind of cool. You know, you put it on a couple of your comics as like a fun sort of a thing or whatnot, but I'd rather be drawing as a publisher of, you know, a few indie comics. I think could be a cool thing in the future. A little image or umbrella, you know, thing for us and our friends to throw on. Could be cool.
So I think one thing we skipped, and this will be perfect because we got about 5 minutes here before I have to call it the piece out. Did we talk about like plans for next week?
No. Let me know what you're thinking, especially with kind of getting over your ills and second week of school. What are you aiming to get done?
I'm aiming to get over this. Is what I'm aiming. I'm really like, so what happened is I got like a little cold. I went and, you know, you buy that, like, it's a couple day pack. It like comes with like you take your one at night and it puts you to sleep, and you take your daytimes and the kind of thing.
Yeah. Like Flintstone chewables.
No. Yeah, exactly. No, you know, it's like you buy the day cold and it comes in the pack with the day and the night. But it was like I did that and I was like getting over it, and then I ran out of it before I was kind of actually over it. And I think I like let myself fall back into it before I'd actually really gotten over it. So I went and refreshed myself, and I'm back on the meds and flushing my nose like 3 times a day now too, like I said. And if you have never tried a neti pot, man, you got a feeling of just shoving some hot salty water through your nose and it coming out the other nostril.
It's the feeling of, like, I called it controlled drowning, but pleasant and comfortable. It was really
controlled drowning, yeah, exactly.
It was like when you jump in a pool and like everything like goes up your face all at once.
Yeah.
Only you can still breathe, and it's quite nice.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyway, so yeah, I'm doing that. I'm gonna just flush my nose every 5 seconds until I just feel good.
Gross. Cool.
And so anyway, I started doing little doodles of it. My next scene for the comic is like a cool like D-Day kind of looking thing. If anyone's a Star Wars fan, you can almost imagine like the episode 1, which wasn't, I know it wasn't the best episode, guys, but there's the scene of the battle in Naboo of like, the Jar Jar Binks battle, but it drops down all the mechs and it's just like it just seems like drop ships are just like dropping like hordes of robots kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this thing in my brain of this very utilitarian, almost like if anyone's a Star Trek fan, like the Borg cube. Like there's no purpose for this thing except that it drops troops, and so it's going to be like a rectangular square. So I did some doodles of some like concepts for it, and I need to like nail that down, and then I'm going to start drawing that scene. I'm hoping to get either that panel started or finished in terms of my pencils by the end of next week.
Very cool.
But what I'm going to post is I've been doing these doodles. I have this really cool thing, which I'm going to plug this, and then it's all you. Some friends of ours, John. Some friends of ours from work. They're
Dahlberg.
Yeah, Dahlberg. Yeah, they are having. We are like throwing like a fundraiser thing for them because they're having a new baby, and they already have tons and tons and tons of foreseeable medical bills and stuff. So I have offered my services as an artist to sell the stuff that I'm drawing here and like giving the like proceeds to them.
Very cool. When is that?
It's September 8th. It's like a big vendor thing that a bunch of different vendors could buy like booths for, and I purchased one.
So you're gonna like donate some artwork to sell, and proceeds go to?
Yep. Actually, I'm literally gonna have like my booth there and give a certain percentage of what I make.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So I'm kind of doodling up some things that are going to be specifically for it. The ones that I'm messing with may or may not be. I'm supposed to like make like a basket raffle kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like working on some extra new pieces that aren't just ones already in my portfolio.
Nice.
So
that's a really cool thing, man.
These ones that I'm doing right now, and I'm going to post early next week. So my next like 3 posts will be them, probably more or less, and then I'll get back into the comic stuff again.
Very cool. Well, when doing it right, I still feel like it all helps, and you're obviously not doing that stuff as a means to not be working on your comics. So
yeah,
when working correctly, it's all learning, right?
Exactly.
So for me, I haven't really thought about it too much. I need to figure out, and I've kind of talked before about how, let's see here. I don't know if I've already mentioned it on Demonstrate on here. Anyway, if it's a book, it'll be the image on one side and then a white page with the writing on the other. Well, I want to do some sort of design element on the other. So by the end of tonight, I'm going to have all the writing and stuff done. But by the end of next week, if not that design for all the pages where I can just sort of cut and paste and put that design on each page, I at least like it figured out if I'm going to make like an emblem that is a grayed out image behind it or whatever. I really need to have that figured out, because if I can do that, then that book really will be done. I won't have anything else to do except just send it to the printer. And I have the money that I've made off the last book that I've saved to be able to get like a small print run of this one. So I'd like to have that done and just keep plugging away on the October story. I guess I'd like to have a sketch of that cover that I talked about. Okay. So if I could have this comic, the words done on the Mr. Green's Monster Zine, and then October have a cover, at least, I don't know how far pencil's done, or at least where you could be like, oh, see what it is and what's going on. But I'm thinking just kind of a traditional comic cover with, all the fun characters on the front and the cool pose thing, really just kind of go for it with that fun. But if I can have those done by the next time we talk, that'll be great. But also next Sunday, I got to work it out. But Peter Palmiotti asked me on his show again, and it's going to be fun. I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, but he offered to give me inking tips, which is really cool because I still feel like I'm just grasping at straws when it comes to inking sometimes. All the time. So I don't know if it'll be like in a teacher-student sort of lesson thing or just a conversation about it, but that'll be happening next week as well. So I don't know if I'll do that show and then just roll into this one with you, or if we might have to do like a quicker 15 next week or whatnot. But I did want to let you know that before we had talked about possibly a guest thing for our show. But I don't know, we might want to wait on that, or else I can just like join for like a little bit in it. But either way, we'll talk more. Are you still there?
No, yeah, I'm still here. I was I was like giving you that chance to just like wrap it up before I like jumped in and said too much.
Yeah, no, you're good. Where can we find you at when we're not here on I'd Rather Be Motivated?
Right, you can find me once again. Instagram is probably the best place to find me. Our Art of Mr. Fleming, and then Mr. David Fleming is how you find me everywhere else. Store Envy, all that other kind of stuff that I have as well. I feel like it's catching up to me here, man. I need some sleep.
I'm thinking like you just having to talk so much is probably irritating it too.
Yeah, probably more or less. But yeah, we put all this stuff in the what do you call that? In
Show
the
notes.
description. Show notes. There it is. I love that word. Yeah. All right. Over to you.
All right. So yeah, just to kind of show you, I have been kind of working on some stuff here. I don't know if you can see this guy. Got to get this camera thing figured out at some point, but this is the Old Man and the Sea Monster. I don't know. That's what I'm calling it. But yeah, so where you can find me, mostly on Instagram if I'm not here on YouTube, and IGTV with the rest of my 100 days of making comics. Don't you love these awesome graphics that we just have just floating by? Anyway, 100 days of making comics on day 55. Over on Instagram, it's Mr. Green Draws, mr.greendraws. And then if you want to come check us out and subscribe and like our page over on Facebook, it's I'd Rather Be Drawing there as well. If you guys do, likes and comments, subscriptions, follows, all that stuff, it really helps. Even if you want to give us a big old fat thumbs down on this one, it all helps, and we do appreciate it. And thank you guys in the chat. We're still learning how to kind of bounce back and forth and not totally lose my train of thought as I'm doing one or the other, but really appreciate you guys coming by to say hey, Ace, Dirk, Red, thank you guys all for coming to say hey. We do appreciate it. So that's all I got, sir. Anything else?
No, that sounds like a wrap. See you guys next week.